For thousands of years, plague, superstition, and murder have drenched Britain and Ireland with blood and misery. Those dark memories still haunt our ancient lands. That's why we call them the Spooky Isles.
Welcome to the Spooky Isles. This is David Saunderson, and today we're visiting Shropshire to visit legendary horror author Guy N. Smith. Joining me in place of John Kaneko James, who can't be here today, is Paul Adams. Hello, Paul.
Hello, David.
Paul's soon becoming quite a regular interviewer here at Spooky Isles, but it's appropriate that he's here today because he is what we would class as a uber Guy N. Smith fan, and we've just spent the last 3 hours travelling from London here to Shropshire, and him telling me all the wonderful things and going through all the gory details or all the colourful details of Guy N. Smith. What is it about Guy that... tell us, when did you first read one of his books?
I first encountered Guy's work in 1977 when I was 11 years old in a bookshop in Tolworth Broadway in Surrey, and I came across his classic Night of the Crabs, which had been out for about a year, and it just sort of blew me away. The cover, it was my first adult book that I'd read, and I became an instant fan and started collecting his books, and it was his work and his writing which really made me want to write myself. So it was
how would you describe his writing? If someone hasn't read a Guy N. Smith book, how would you describe it? It's fast-paced,
no frills horror action, very well worked out, interesting characters and good detail. It's a classic pulp horror novel.
Okay, well we've got Guy here now. Hello, Guy.
Hello.
Thank you for inviting us into your home.
Pleasure.
Wonderful here out in Shropshire. I think it's the first time I've ever been out here, so it's wonderful to be here. You've just released your latest book, Hangman's Hotel, and that's available now, I believe.
Right. Yeah.
How does that compare with your first book that came out in 1974, Werewolf of Moonlight? What's changed in the book world since you first published a book?
Well, things have changed in the book world, but I don't think they've changed with me. Because, Werewolf by Moonlight was a short book, right? Pacey tale, right? And it did well. Then, of course, in between that, we've been on to much, much longer books. An editor once asked me to make the books more complicated, which I considered unnecessary. I like a simple tale, well told. And now I'm back doing what I was doing in 1974. If you read the stories, because this is a book of short stories, basically you will find the style the same as it was in the beginning.
Do you think that the internet, the whole e-book thing, has given you that kind of opportunity, or it's more simpler to publish yourself nowadays?
Certainly it has, because the trade at large decided that there wasn't sales for category publishing. Horror sort of twittered away. Westerns were dead. But people still want them, but the trade insists they don't. So that is how it is. You go into a bookshop and you ask them where the horror section is, and they won't have one.
Yeah. Would you... and so this book now, as it's available, is it available everywhere, or is it just through the internet, or how does it work?
It's available as an ebook and as a print on demand if you want a nice glossy paperback.
Yeah.
And you can get it from Black Hill Books.
Oh, okay. And Black Hill's where we are now.
That's it.
It is. So it's and what is it? You've written lots of type of styles of writing over the years. You've done a western, I believe. You've done you do your own journalism. You write children's books. You do the whole range of every genre there possibly is. What is it that you like about horror, though? Because you're I would say you're mainly known. Maybe that might be unfair, but you're a famous horror author. What is it about horror that you enjoy?
What I like about horror is what I call fun horror. Simple tales. I mean, we've got like crabs as big as cows, and I mean, it's quite impossible, but this is obviously what the readership likes.
Where does it all come from, though? Is it this is all very sort of it's almost like 1950s American, these horror movies. The way I think of 1950s horror films, they're all, these big, huge ants and monsters.
Well, all mine come out of me. I mean, I have actually read very little horror over the years. That I've done purposely because I don't want to be influenced by anybody else's writing, and I prefer. It gives me a greater satisfaction to know that everything is my own.
Yeah, you can't be accused of ripping someone off if you've never read their
absolutely.
stuff. So, yeah. Paul, what's your favourite of Guy's books? Like you were saying to me in the car, and we were talking about it, how it's a lot of sort of like nature against man. You say with crabs.
Yeah, there's a lot of sort of
eco
horror with Guy's writing. There's Guy's done the snakes, the crabs, the locusts. My favourite one of all Guy's books, I think, has got to be one of his really early ones. His the Slime Beast, which for me, the writing it's so pared down, and the story it's a simple story, and it's so in its the way that it's sort of stripped down the writing. The story is, there's no padding, and it's down to its bare elements. In the first couple of sort of short chapters, Guy introduces the setting, he introduces the main characters, there's some sort of human menace and some human antagonism, and then he introduces the sort of supernatural menace with the sort of coming of the slime beast. And I just like the way that the way that it turns over, and it's to me it's one of your.
Is there a reason for the nature against man? Is there anything behind that, or is it just you think it's terrifying?
I think it's terrifying. I mean, it'd be a job to say nature against man, because you wouldn't find a slime beast anywhere on this planet.
No, probably not.
Except in my book.
Yeah.
And I mean, it did have a big appeal. I mean, in its early days, I mean, we're going back nearly 40 years. I mean, it's over 100,000. Yeah. It's had 3 different covers. And now, after all these years, it's being published in the States by Centipede Press as a hardcover limited edition. Okay. And on top of that, I've got a film contract on it, all of which have happened within the last 6 months.
So that's a recent one. That's not the original film contract.
No, this is a recent one.
This is Slime Beast we're talking
about. Oh, Slime Beast.
Yeah,
sorry, Slime Beast. I was thinking of crabs. Sorry, I thought...
No.
This is a Slime Beast, so we're going to see a Slime Beast film.
Yeah, and furthermore, I'm going to write a sequel to the Slime Beast.
Ooh, that's very exciting. So,
well, if they think it's good enough to have it as a limited hardcover edition, and a film company thinks it'd make a good film, I think it deserves a sequel.
Yeah, especially the author.
And it will be written in the same style, right?
Yeah.
It'll only be a short book, because the Slime Beast was only a short book. I want to emulate the style, right? But obviously there will be a few changes. They'll be the same characters, but they'll be much older. And the Slime Beast will return. Well, at least a Slime Beast will return.
How does this make you feel, Paul, seeing it's your favourite
it's
book?
great. I'm really looking forward to it. Looking forward to that.
You'd have some ideas yourself. You're wondering probably what's going to happen, or is it directly on, or is it a different story, or is it a direct sequel to the
It's a direct sequel.
Okay, so it's what happens next.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there could be a third. I mean, it depends what happens with films, hardcover, limited editions, whatever.
Okay. How many books have you written? If you've counted in your head, how many?
I think we totted them up in all genres to about 120.
Wow. That's a lot of books.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, I suppose it is really. Not against the likes of John Creasy and Agatha Christie and those, but
yeah,
it is a lot of books. Yeah,
it is a lot of books. We were talking before. I don't know why I mistook the thing about the film deal, because you originally had a deal, I believe, with Amicus for the was it Night of the Crabs? Was that the one?
That's right, yeah.
And that ended that. I don't think it ever got filmed, but
It did.
It did. Was it directly from that? Because
the way I understand it is Amicus bought the rights to Night of the Crabs. The owner of Amicus died. Where the film rights went after that, I don't know, except that it appeared as a television movie, which I knew nothing about until I was having breakfast with a film guy years ago, and he said, "Oh, by the way, your Crabs film was on the telly last night." And, oh. Anyway, I managed to get a video of it. Funny story is that I got the video from Canada from the guy who's going to film the Slime Beast. And he went down to the video shop, hired it, copied it, sent it to me. So anyway, Christmas time, I said to our kids, right, we're going to watch Dad's film tonight. Oh, yeah, fine. Put it on. Nothing. Because it needed converting to VHS. So I had to send it down to London to get it done. But that film, my name wasn't mentioned. It was called Island Claws, but it had virtually all the plots from Night of the Crabs sequels and whatever. For instance, the Hayman Island Hotel on the Great Barrier Reef, which was a millionaire's paradise. Yeah. They didn't use anything like that. They used a shack on the beach where this hobo dossed.
Probably a lot cheaper than doing Hayman Island in Queensland, isn't
it? You never saw a crab. You saw one crab. That was the big crab, the king crab. You heard them clicking in the shadows, but you never actually saw them.
Yeah.
But they tell me nowadays, and I have had film interest since, of course they can make them with computer imaging, and it's much cheaper.
Why was what was it, like a real crab, the one crab that was actually seen in the film? What did it look like? Was it like a plastic crab or something like that?
Well,
it looked like a magnified
you
real
didn't really
crab,
get a good view of it, but it was...
what did you think of the film?
Rubbish.
Rubbish. And Paul said it was rubbish when he told me, so you're probably glad your name's not on it.
Wow.
One question I've always wanted to ask you, Guy. Killer Crabs, the sequel to Night of the Crabs. What was the reason for setting it in the Great Barrier Reef? Was it? I always thought that you might have been there on holiday and decided to.
No, I just thought we'd go up market a bit and have some millionaires and a different lifestyle than we'd had at
than Barmouth.
Yeah.
Oh, that's excellent. Your style? Paul was saying is very direct and very. You said you didn't like to have complicated plot lines, with all these subplots and all that. How would you describe your style of writing?
Straightforward, no frills. I think I tell a good story, and I'll tell it as it happens. I describe the characters, but a lot of books have got far too much description in them, and it makes it very tiresome reading to me. I like something that moves fast.
Yeah, you can imagine the description in your head. You don't need to be told it, maybe.
That's right.
And you could give them a few bits of...
I think that's half the pleasure of reading, if you can create your own character.
It's also a lot quicker, isn't it? If it's just like, he walked through the door, you don't need to know it was a brown door, you don't need it was a...
That's right.
It's just he walked through the door and walked out the house and punched the guy, or whatever it might be. So, and that's the kind of thing. What keeps you writing, though? You're on, you said 120 books. What has kept you writing over the years?
Because I enjoy it, I suppose. It's part of my lifestyle here. I do a lot of other things, but I rather think if I didn't write, I'd get the feeling I'd given up, and I'll always keep writing, whether it's journalism, novels, or whatever.
So there's still a few more books in you?
Yeah.
Going to get more slime beasts and more crabs and more.
I've thought of another one beyond that, but we'll get the slime beasts out of the way first.
Paul will get too excited if you give him too much at the moment. So we were talking before we did the interview, and I hope you don't mind me saying about, you've obviously been talking to Paul about a lot of the paranormal, and there's been a lot of sort of more less in the sort of the beast type books, but more of the Sabbat books. There's sort of an occult paranormal aspect to your writing. Do you bring any of that from your own experiences?
In previous books, no. But since we've had paranormal happenings here...
when you mean here, you say in this house that we're
yes,
sitting in now?
This house, yeah. I may well do. I mean, Hangman's Hotel is virtually, and I think Paul will agree with me, they're nearly all supernatural stories, aren't they?
That's right. Yes. Yeah. A lot of ghost stories in there.
Yeah. And do you mind elaborating on what you say about the paranormal activity here in the house?
Well, briefly, things have happened. Objects have whizzed across the room. The clue at the outset, which should have alerted me, my mother lived here for the last 2.5 years of her life when she'd got senile dementia, and after she died I took her ballpoint pen, which I value. It disappeared off my desk one day and was gone for a fortnight, and turned up in a very obvious place where it couldn't have been missed. And a few days later it went again, and it was away for 2 months, and it turned up in that same place. And then, of course, I've got a collection of tobacco tins which are on corkboards on the wall in one room. And this is the favourite trick, that crash, bang, clatter, and it's always 3 tins. They don't just fall off. They go round the corner and up the passage to her old bedroom. Well, one Sunday lunchtime, I heard crash, bang, wallop, and I went up the stairs and I grabbed the EMF on the way because I wanted to try and get a reading, but I was totally unprepared for what I saw, because down the end of the passage, in the doorway to her old bedroom, with the tobacco tins on the floor, of course, stood my mother. I did get a reading on the machine, a reading of 6, which was high. And obviously I was very shaken. But now I know what it is, I'm not concerned. It can be a nuisance when things go missing, but we'll leave it at that for the time being.
You've obviously spoken to Guy about it, Paul. What do you make of it as a paranormal investigator?
I mean, it's very interesting. I mean, there were some things that, like the objects that were disappearing, and they followed quite a sort of a set pattern where things do go missing and then are returned in some way that we don't know, but they'll come back in an obvious place, and that happened a couple of times in the Guy anymore. Yeah. So and the movement of objects, and it's very interesting. I mean, it's just like a typical haunting,
So this property we're in now is what, an 1840s former stable? Is that what you call it, or
granary, stable, and Wayne House, where they used to put the grain harvest.
And you're the only people that have lived in this property, so it's unlikely to have been anyone other than people who have lived here recently with you.
It's most unlikely.
Because, so have you done any investigations here, Paul? Or
not personally, no.
Just general talking and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So do you think that's maybe why your latest book is got a bit of more of a supernatural bent rather than just a
out and out horror?
Out and out horror. I was going to say
not really, no, because the Hangman's Hotel is certainly horror, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The other ones are ghost ones, but they were written before all this started. Most of them were, anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So it's just more coincidence than anything.
Yeah, it's certainly coincidence.
And
yeah.
How does this make you feel, though? Did you believe in ghosts before this happened?
Oh yeah, I believed in ghosts, but I never had such close contact.
Okay.
And it was unnerving until I realised who it was and what it was all about.
Yeah, and therefore you know no one's going to try to hurt you, and
No.
yeah, it's just a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, just as a prominent horror author, what do you think of modern horror?
Well, I haven't read much of modern horror, to be perfectly honest.
Well, maybe films then, because
I don't watch them.
Don't you?
No, I mean, if you're writing horror, you've got enough of it. You don't really want to be reading it as well.
What kind of things do you watch then?
I'll watch westerns, comedies.
Yeah.
I think comedies are good for you.
Yeah.
And football.
Yeah.
That's about it. I do more reading than watching television.
Okay. So, because most of your ideas are just sort of, well, I'm not going to say ridiculous ideas, but just outlandish sort of ideas about having huge crabs and stuff like that. You don't.
Yeah.
You can sort of you get that from the countryside, or get that from just general looking at life.
Just looking at life, really. I mean, something else occurred to me for a book beyond the Slime Beast sequel, but I've got to do more research on that yet. These things just happen.
Yeah.
But I got a little notebook and I make a note of them, and I'll do a bit of research at the time, and then I'll leave it. And then, when I've made my mind up, I'm going to write the book. Then I'll do the serious research.
Yeah.
But you've always got to have ideas jotted down. It's no good saying, "Oh, I better write another book." Oh, what shall I write? No. Keep a record of your ideas as you go.
Yeah.
Guy, you're a contemporary of James Herbert. I mean, the Rats came out at a similar time as the Night of the Crabs. I remember hearing Herbert speak in an interview once where he was asked whether there was anything that in any of his books that he regretted writing, and he cited an incident where in the Rats there was an attack with a baby, and he, in retrospect, he wished he hadn't done it. Is there anything in your writing that you wished you put down that you
No.
now you think is too strong, or you
No, no, absolutely not. I don't like things happening to kids as a rule. Apart from that, no, there's nothing. There's nothing that I would say, oh, if I had my time over again, I'd take that out of the book. No, no.
Okay. Well, Paul, you just asked a question there, but seeing now, we're interviewing your writing hero, you being the uber fan, is there anything else you'd like to ask him just before we sign off today?
I think I'd like to ask Guy. I think I'd just like to say thank you for your books that have been a huge part of my life over the years, reading and inspiring me to write. So really, I'd just like to say thank you for
Well, that's very kind of you, and I do appreciate it. And I mean, it does mean something to me if I can give fans and readers some pleasure. I mean, that is what it's all about, not just about selling books. I mean, things happen like I was at a game fair once. Of course, you couldn't find anything more divorced from horror fiction. And I walked into a stand there, gunmaker there, who I didn't know, right? And I got my press card on with my name on, and he said, "Hello, Mr. Night of the Crabs." And I was really, really taken back. And he said, "Oh, I read them in my youth." And this has happened more than once on unrelated occasions. And people said, "Oh, yeah, I read your books when I was in my teens." And it's very nice that they've remembered them.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, on that note, we'll leave it at that. But thank you for inviting us into your home today. It's been wonderful. Thank you, Paul.
Pleasure.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for coming.
Until next time, this is David Saunderson for the Spooky Isles.
You have been listening to The Spooky Isles, hosted by David Saunderson and John Canico James with assistance from Lorcan Maguire. You can visit the Spooky Isles website for more tales of ghosts, horror, and dark history in the UK and Ireland at spookyisles.com. This is Anthony M. R. Lewis speaking.